For nearly 3,000 years, man has searched for the Lost Ark of the Covenant.
The Bible speaks of the Ark leveling mountains and laying waste to entire regions. Not something to be taken lightly. No one knows its secrets.
Jones, do you realize what the Ark is? It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to God.
An army which carries the Ark before it is invincible.
The Ark, if it is their Eternis, then it is something that man was not meant to disturb.
It is protected by forces beyond imagination. It is desired above all treasures on earth by those who are good,
Trust me.
and those who are evil.
I'll tell you everything.
Yes, I know you will.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Let her go.
We have no time. If you still want the Ark, it is being loaded onto a truck for Cairo.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. A film from Steven Spielberg and George Lucas.
Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to another movie review. And this review is going to be on Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was released in 1981, the very first Indiana Jones film. And I'm going to attempt to review the Indiana Jones films up until the new one, Dial of Destiny, which is going to be released this month, at the end of the month. Hopefully I could get to that. But you all are going to be shocked when I say this, but I have never seen any of these films. Yep, be shocked. Be like, oh, what is wrong with you, Michael? You have not seen any of the Indiana Jones films? What the hell is wrong with you? And you say, oh, you're a movie buff. Yes, I do know of Indiana Jones. I have seen clips from the films. I do know the character of Indiana Jones. I just never seen the films all the way through. We're going to start off with the first film in the franchise, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the film stars Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, Ron Lacey, John Rhys Davies, and DeHome Elliott. Of course, directed by Steven Spielberg. George Lucas and Philip Kaufman wrote the story. Screenplay was done by Lawrence Kasdan. And, of course, two best friends in Steven Spielberg and George Lucas collabed together, working on the film. And what can I say about Raiders of the Lost Ark? A lot of you have seen it. It's a classic. It's one of the greatest films ever made. It was the highest grossing film of 1981 when it came out. It's a fun film. It's a great adventure film, action adventure film, and you got memorable scenes, and the story is just great. The characters are fantastic and very memorable. Indiana Jones, the character played by Harrison Ford, very iconic, and the Indiana Jones franchise has a lasting impact on popular culture, and this is a film that inspired, future filmmakers. But what can I say more about this film that already hasn't been said? But you all know what the film is about. The film is set in 1936. Indiana Jones, who is played by Harrison Ford, he's a globetrotting archaeologist, and he's vying with Nazi Germany forces to recover the Ark of the Covenant, which was long lost and this ark is said to make an army invincible. So Jones ends up teaming up with former romantic interest Marion Ravenwood, who was played by Karen Allen, and also he has to race to stop archaeologist Dr. René Belloq, who was played by Paul Freeman, from guiding the Nazis to the Ark and the Ark's power. And of course, you all know that René Belloq is Indiana Jones's rival. But basically, that's what the plot to the film is about. I mean, you all have, seen the film. It has many memorable scenes, of course, in the beginning of the film, where Indiana Jones, recovers a golden idol from a Peruvian temple that, he's in with Alfred Molina, a very young Alfred Molina. And of course, the big boulder, Indiana Jones is run away from the boulder. Very memorable, very classic, very well done, shotly scene. And of course, you have the famous scene in the end where Belloq and the Nazis open up the Ark of the Covenant, and the fearsome power of God strikes, the Nazis, and Belloq and Major Arnold Todt, who was played by Ronald Lacey, and you see Belloq and Todt's faces, they end up melting. Very well done with that. But, I really enjoy, the characters of, Indiana Jones and Marion Ravenwood, like their chemistry together, two iconic characters. You have, Indiana Jones, reuniting with her, which he ends up approaching her at a bar, and you see Arnold Todt arrives to take a medallion from, Ravenwood, and he ends up recovering the medallion from the flames because the bar, ends up going on fire, during a scuffle, and, the medallion ends up burning in, Todt's hand, the image into his hand, which I have to say, did John Hughes get that idea, for Joe Pesci's character in Home Alone, where Joe Pesci ends up putting, his hand on the McAllister's door because Macaulay Culkin as Kevin ended up putting, that barbecue, I guess, thing that they use, and then he puts his hand on the door, Joe Pesci, and it burns the image of the doorknob in his hand. I'm wondering if, John Hughes got that idea from this film, because later on you see Todt with the image of the medallion on his hand. So you also have I like the monkey there, which I thought the monkey was very cute. Even though we all know what happened to the monkey. But Raiders of the Lost Ark, what more can I say? It's a classic. It's one of the greatest films ever made. Very greatly directed by Spielberg. Good story from George Lucas. And of course, you cannot forget, the score by John Williams, dun, 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 dun. Just absolutely classic score. When you think of that, you think of course, the indie films. Once you hear it, it's one of the most iconic film scores. But gonna talk about a little trivia with the film. George Lucas conceived Raiders of the Lost Ark in the early 1970s. He was seeking to modernize the serial films of the early 20th century. He developed the idea further with Kaufman, who suggested the Ark as the film's goal. Lucas eventually focused on developing Star Wars, and development on Raiders of the Lost Ark resumed that year when he started the idea with Spielberg, who joined the project several months later. The pair had ideas for set pieces and stunts for the film, and they hired Lawrence Kasdan to fill in narrative gaps between them. Pre-release polling showed little audience interest in the film, especially compared to Superman 2. Despite this, Raiders of the Lost Ark became the highest grossing film of 1981, earned approximately $330.5 million worldwide, and it had a budget of $20 million. So it was a big hit. And it was such a big hit that the film played in theaters for over a year. It was a huge, huge success. So the film was nominated for several awards. It won 5 Academy Awards, 7 Saturn Awards, and 1 BAFTA Awards, among other accolades. Production, George Lucas received Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1973, shortly after finishing the comedy film American Graffiti, which he, of course, directed. So in 1975, Lucas discussed his serial film idea with his friend Philip Kaufman. The pair worked on the story for 2 weeks. George Lucas imagined his character as a college professor and archaeologist adventurer, based on his own appreciation for archaeology and famous archaeologists like Hiram Bingham III, Roy Chapman Andrews, and Leonard Woolley. Lucas wanted Kaufman to direct the film, but because he was already committed to working on The Outlaw Josie Walls, Lucas paused the idea again and resumed working on Star Wars. And we all know how much of a phenomenon Star Wars was when it was released in 1977. So, it says right here, in May 1977, Lucas vacationed in Hawaii to avoid any potential negative news about the theatrical debut of Star Wars, and he invited Steven Spielberg to join him and his wife. On a beach near Nuukia, Lucas and Spielberg discussed their next projects. Spielberg wanted to direct a James Bond film, but George Lucas pitched him The Adventures of Indiana Smith. Yes, originally Indiana Jones was going to be named Indiana Smith, but Steven Spielberg didn't like that idea of the name, so they went with, of course, Indiana Jones. So Spielberg, one of the reasons why he hated the name Indiana Smith was it was believed it would remind audiences of the Steve McQueen character Nevada Smith. So it says actors Clint Eastwood and Toshihiro Mifune and the James Bond character were the basis of Jones's own. Lucas wanted Indiana Jones to be a kung fu practitioner and a playboy, funding his lifestyle with the spoils of his adventures. But Spielberg and Kasdan felt the character was complicated enough being an adventurer and archaeologist. Spielberg suggested making Jones an avid gambler or an alcoholic, but Lucas wanted Jones to be a role model who was honest and true and trusting. A whole lot of trivia on the film. And, you had the scene, with the snakes, which, try to find it here. There were repeated delays while filming the Wells of Soul scene. There were too few snakes, a lack of anti-venom, and also Stanley Kubrick's daughter, Vivian, who was visiting, Stanley Kubrick on the set of The Shining, called the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals about the treatment of the snakes. And you all know about that scene, with the snakes. But it says right here, Spielberg described this phase as one of his worst filming experiences because Tunisia was used to portray Egypt in the film, and the temperature was often over 130 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't imagine what they were going through when they were filming over there. And over 150 crew members became sick with amoebic dysentery from the local food. Oh, God. Spielberg was one of the few to remain healthy because he ate food and water he bought from England. George Lucas also suffered a severe sunburn and facial swelling. Oof. That is crazy. That is absolute crazy. But overall, Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, classic, one of the greatest films ever made, and everybody knows, about it. So if you haven't seen it, which obviously you probably all have, it's a great film. But anyways, that's it for my review of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all back here later tonight with the SmackDown and AEW Rampage review. So see you all later tonight.